Can we get just a general UAE vibe check?
Chaos.
Can you imagine that time moves on and things change?
Welcome back, Kit Nicholson.
Hello.
Good to have you back. And Johnny Long.
Yep. I'm
Is that
still
new
with
art? Is that new art?
It's not
New
mine.
location.
It doesn't belong to me. Same location as Monday.
Oh. I'm just look new to me. Let's get right
Because
into
on
it.
Monday, all we could see was this.
Yeah.
That's
well,
true.
we constantly battle with our setups.
Every
Constant
single week.
battles.
Every single week. Let's get to it. I want to kick off with the Giro d'Italia because we're in the middle of it right now, and it has been a fantastic edition of the race thus far. It's not that we don't like Tadej Pogačar. It's that he definitely made the race a little bit less good last
A little
year.
bit.
A little
Just
bit.
a little bit.
A lot bit.
A lot of it. Yeah.
It's more fun when there's when there's some GC jeopardy happening. Two,
It's more fun when it's more than one person in the race.
that's also true. We
Crucial.
have some intra-team rivalry
Yeah, that's always good.
questioning going on with UAE and Del Toro and Ayuso. That's very fun. Roglic keeps falling down, so that's pretty standard. But yeah, we've got a whole fair amount to talk
We've got
about.
a comeback rider in Bernal and Van Aert, so there are those storylines too.
I didn't realize that Bernal crashed in the time trial.
No, neither did I. But I did notice that he wasn't on his beautiful new bike in some of the photos. So he was on a spare bike at some point. So I wasn't sure whether that was a issue with the setup or
I don't
the crash.
believe-
And evidently the crash.
I don't believe it was ever on TV, unless I
No, I
missed it.
didn't.
But then I saw on Instagram later
Yeah.
some fan with the video of him crashing in one of the very wet corners. So hopefully that
Which
doesn't
makes his sad time make a little
makes
bit
more sense. Yeah, because like
Although he was only a few seconds slower than Carapaz, and Carapaz, is wanting to win the damn thing. So
but he did lose to Larry Warbass. So
Laza
Larry-
Waza.
I think Larry's actually a pretty good time trialist.
yeah, and Larry would have been an early starter without
in the
any
dry,
weather.
and he would have
Yeah.
been in the dry.
Yeah.
An early starter in this case being a bit of shade thrown his way, right, Kit?
Not necessarily. He's riding for a team. He's riding as a helper.
What are we talking about? Let's get into Richard Carapaz, which is one of my favorite stage wins thus far. Who can you kind of talk me through it? Who wants to talk me through it?
I did
Johnny.
the race report, so
Yeah, Johnny should do it.
I had to dust
Well,
off the
yeah.
race report fingers to type that one out.
Grand job.
It was a grand old stage. There was attacking from the start. There was this sort of it's going to be a good stage when you have a bunch of not like breakaway riders, but like okay, this sounds rude. Actual riders, like hitters, head off on a move. So you had likes of Luke Plapp, Pogačar, Wout Poels. I can't actually remember. There was other people in there. Anyway, it was a good. Nairo Quintana. How could I forget Nairo Quintana painlessly climbing out off the front?
He's somewhere in between the breakaway and the actual riders now, isn't he?
Yeah,
Maybe.
just absolutely numb to it. And so they were out there. It looked like it was going to be one of those ones where it's so strong they just ride away from it. But then the GC lot decided that they actually wanted a piece of the action. Tom Pidcock said afterwards, it was one of those days it could have gone either way, but then it was just so hard that it became a GC day, which was just quite a succinct way of explaining how sometimes these races pan out.
Well, because so they had this climb in the very middle of it. It's a Cat 1.
Yes, the San Pellegrino. Bit of a limonata taste in the middle of the day, yeah.
But it is nasty. It is very, very. It has a bunch of ramps at like 20%, and I believe it was Egan Bernal who ended up kind of taking a bit of a gap or trying to take a bit of a gap on that climb. We wondered if anyone would try because it was smack in the middle of the stage, right? It topped out at 94K on a 186K stage, so nearly 100 kilometers remaining. But it did serve to basically accelerate the GC group, pull them closer to that breakaway, and from that point on, it was kind of the writing was on the wall that the breakaway was never going to happen. I think Luke Plapp knew this. Luke Plapp was doing all this sort of like hanging out at the back stuff, and there was discussion, I think particularly among the Aussie crowd, like, is he kind of like lost lost legs. It's like, what's going on? I think he just realized it was doomed and was like,
when they
okay,
weren't
The
really
gap
good
was
enough.
never big, was
try
it?
again later
Yeah.
this week.
Yeah, all of UAE's team were on the front on that climb. The best bit, while it was great to see Bernal attack and try something, unfortunately, I think maybe he's not going to make, well, famous last words, might not factor, because Juan Ayuso had the wherewithal to like sort of push his teammate aside, who's on the front, to move him across and then just pedal up to Egan Bernal.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean, it doesn't take anything away. But then we got to the end. The breakaway was coming back sort of on that final climb within the last 10K, and then Richard Carapaz shot out from the peloton, sort of using the...
Shot is the right word.
He did, yeah.
He does this quite often.
He does.
I feel like I remember him doing it at the Vuelta last year, maybe.
He looks a bit like a bullet when he's in that like POC
Yeah.
helmet, and he has sort of a bit of a square face. Like, it all works. And he used the breakaway coming back as a bit of a slingshot. It was a bit of a Talladega Night slingshot maneuver to whip him around the corner.
Classic.
And by the top of the climb, 30 seconds, and then he had it in the bag. Great victory. He actually managed to move up 3 places on GC with only 20 seconds gained, so it shows how tight it still is in that top 10.
It's still really tight, and it's not like the group behind wasn't kind of trying to pull him back. So I think it shows some really good form on his part as we come into the end of the middle of the second week and toward that incredibly gnarly third week.
Yeah, and as his boss said on Instagram,
Oh, this is
cojones
good.
grandes.
God,
Should we read the whole JV?
I definitely
Instagram?
want to read the whole thing. It is
Come on,
wonderful.
then. Have you got it, Kit?
I've got it up. Working with Richie is complex. The guy lives his life to the fullest, that's for certain. He is not a robotic cyborg programmed to pique the interest of Peter Attia's podcast. Hell, Richie wouldn't know who the F that guy even is. But I suppose that's what EF cycling is all about. We pick the riders that somehow got lost in shuffle, the ones deemed too much of a pain in the arse to deal with by the other teams, and then we win with them. Right about the time when the pundits forgot their names. Well, say the name, Richard Carapaz. I mean, who does that
Good
say
stuff.
more about? Does that say more about Carapaz or JV?
JV. Well, look, Simon Mottram's dropped into the comments here. All sorts of Simon Mottram, obviously the founder of Rafa. All sorts
of course.
interesting folks jumping in and agreeing wholeheartedly.
I love it.
with
I don't think
Vaughters'
anyone had
assessment.
ever forgotten the likes of Carapaz or Rigoberto
Well,
Urán.
no.
I mean, there are there's
Remember-
probably some people who he's plucked from obscurity because they were cheap.
Remember
But that's what makes the team, right?
Well, so I mean, Vaughters has talked about this a number of times before. Is that they don't have the budget to get riders at the top of their bell curve. They have to get them on the way up, which is hard, particularly when UAE just buys up everybody that might be any good. Or you can get them on the way down, where they occasionally can still get up to the top, right?
Yeah.
And Carapaz is maybe one of the latter there.
Yeah,
I mean,
got the polka jersey at the
Esteban
Tour.
Chavez
Let's-
as well is a good example of it.
let's not forget as well that Jonathan Vaughters is the reigning winner, reigning
Understanding
champion
the assignment.
of the Understanding the Assignment Award.
Yeah.
Jonathan Vaughters understands the assignment at all times,
All
and I
the
think in
time.
this case is clearly understanding the
Yeah.
assignment, which is to up his rider and take advantage and create an Instagram post that we're going to talk about on a podcast.
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even though it reads as like just trains of thought, just written without a second look, every time he posts
I mean,
something, everyone
it's
reads
been
it.
edited, I think, since you and I read it last night, Johnny.
Oh, really?
It
Well,
says edited at the bottom.
Well, he posted it at about if he's in Europe, about 7:30 his time. So that's definitely at least a glass of wine
when
in.
did we share it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when did I don't know when I saw it last night. Must have been
But,
quite soon after I posted it then.
But look, also like the idea, like I remember in the Tour de France documentary, Vaughters saying that they did spend like a decent chunk of change on Carapaz. It's not like they picked him up for nothing off the like practice squad. Like
He's a Giro
it was,
winner.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's not cheap. He's just not, he's not 4 million for
no,
whoever.
for
2 million
Anyway,
for Ayuso. Yeah.
Maybe by the final few kilometers, the more interesting thing that to be seen in Wednesday's stage was the fact that Adam Yates was pulling for Ayuso and Del Toro, which means that we at least know who's on the third protected rider of UAE. So it's good to have that sorted out. It gives us one fewer task to do.
Well,
And we
the
also
context
saw-
there is that at the beginning of the race we were told
Yes,
that
sorry.
Ayuso
Yeah.
and Yates were the two co-leaders.
Yeah, but Yates
and
is
Del Toro
always the
wasn't mentioned.
co-leader. He's just
He's
like
always-
the smashed glass in case of fallen down rider emergency. And then we're just like, yep, Adam Yates will just, he'll just be the leader, sure.
He's like the tiny axe that you use to.
Or is he
Yeah,
is he
yes,
a
he is.
co-leader? Yeah, he's a co-leader in the old-fashioned sense, whereby you'd have one GC leader and then one stage hunter. He is that co-leader. Go for
Maybe,
a stage hunter in the
yes.
third week. But that's
The,
not how UAE works, so I don't actually believe that for a moment.
No, they got to just stack riders in the top 10.
Yeah.
But we also saw Del Toro sprint for second, so he got 6 bonus points with, and he had time to like sit up and look around to check, presumably where Juan Ayuso was. So Del Toro's definitely on good form. He was the one that was it Carapaz? It was someone else's attack. It might have been Carapaz's attack. He tried to follow initially. Or when there was a split on that last climb, and then Ayuso was content to just sit on Roglic's
Yeah, he said
wheel or
something
just
like
hover around there.
it was about the team. It was what was best for the team in that moment was just to keep the group together and try and haul him in.
I think Ayuso maybe made a good decision there to be the team player, so that when he maybe has to not be the team player going forward, he can point to be like, look, sometimes I do the thing that people want me to do.
Yeah, can we get just a general UAE vibe check?
Chaos. It's not really.
I
It's
don't
not
want to
actually really
overplay
chaos.
it. I don't want to overplay it
No,
because
it's not really chaos.
Yeah,
everything we've seen.
we're not at Visma
Ayu-
levels yet.
No,
We're
no,
not
no,
at Visma
no.
Vuelta levels.
Like Del Toro and Ayuso are still hanging out. They're still chatting. Ahead of the time trial, they did a nice dap thing.
Yeah, that's easy to do though for the cameras. Like when
It is.
Ayuso was interviewed by Spanish Eurosport before Thursday's stage, and they were kind of asking him about Del Toro, and he kind of tried to bat it away at the start to be like, oh, like they were asking like, what's the difference between you and Del Toro, or whatever. Like just trying to open him up, try and see what he thinks about the guy. And he wasn't biting. He was saying, "Oh, you're gonna have to ask like the sports directors to talk about that." And then asked again. And it's like, "Oh, like everyone will think something different of every rider." Just like absolutely did not. That's when you actually really, I think, find out is when they just can't even bring themselves to talk about the guy they're trying to beat, or they're sharpening the knife ready to stick it in their back. Go on.
Sorry. Oh, I think what this Giro might show us is just how nice of a person Del Toro is, because I think maybe he's too nice at this point. He's doing a very good job of saying, "Oh, I can't believe I'm here. I'm riding for the team. It's amazing to be on the same bus as these guys." And then the very sweet moment after yesterday's stage where he just said, "Oh, you're getting me in trouble," to the media, and so at some point he's either going to go, "Oh yeah, well, do you know what? Yeah, I know I've lost the pink jersey, but I would really like to have won."
Yeah.
Or he will go off on the attack and he'll win the whole thing.
It's the Pogačar.
Wait.
It's the Pogačar move where you kill him with kindness, and then when you are, behind closed doors, when things have to be sorted out, that's when you turn the screw and you show your killer instinct side, because he definitely has it in there.
You forget that Ayuso is only 22.
I like this comment. So I wrote a quick story. I think this was after the time trial about UAE and what's going on over there. And first of all, great commenter name. Teddy Focaccia.
Oh, that's what my
stuff.
sister calls Teddy Pogačar. Yeah.
Is this your sister? Is this your sister?
Oh, I shall have to ask her.
In our comment section. Wild that Del Toro, age 21,
Yeah.
is the young gun, while Ayuso, age 22, is the cool-headed veteran in this narrative. I did point out beneath that the year that Del Toro won the Tour de l'Avenir, which of course is a junior race, Ayuso was on his second Vuelta. So they are somewhat different levels of experience. But
it might
Teddy,
there might be a Teddy.
Teddy makes a great point, which is that they're both very, very young. They're both probably very, very, well, we know, very, very ambitious. I'm with you, Kit, in that I wonder if Del Toro will at some point just sort of acquiesce. Or more likely, Ayuso will go at some point, and Del Toro maybe could follow but won't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that's the moment
that
then he becomes too nice and he just kind of concedes.
Yeah. So like that for me takes us back to what was the climb with Wiggins and Froome?
I can't remember the climb, but I know
it
the
was in
exact
the
moment.
Pyrenees, and I remember
it
standing at the finish
Colombier?
line. No, it was in the Pyrenees somewhere, I think. I remember. I could tell you.
Yeah.
I've been back to the
I'll
finish
find
line
it.
a couple times since. Anyway, it was a stage in which, basically Froome could have taken a bunch more time. And then there was this whole discussion of, well, could he have won the Tour de France? In the end, Wiggins took a bunch of time on Froome in the time trial like 2 days later, and so it was largely irrelevant. But I feel like we are headed toward like that is light at the end of this tunnel. It is a train. Parasort. There we go. I knew it was in the Pyrenees.
What's interesting about this dynamic as well is that I think, and we've talked about this before, but by the end of this Giro, we're going to learn a few things. There are going to be a couple of takeaways to be had, depending on the different scenarios. This is a very important Giro for Ayuso. It's a very important Grand Tour and season for Ayuso, because if he doesn't win, and Del Toro keeps improving,
he has to leave.
He's going to have to leave. Yeah, he's going to become irrelevant. But then also, if that does happen, and Ayuso kind of finds himself scratching his head and calling up the Unsue dynasty at Movistar, then you might. I mean, thinking about how the two of them have, they're very similar riders on the face of it, but they've had these very different trajectories. There's a question maybe to be asked there about. We've talked about. The rate of development that is demanded of young riders these days. Maybe Ayuso was plucked out of the junior ranks far too soon, and Del Toro's been allowed to develop properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that knowing a bit about Del Toro and where he comes from, I don't know if it was so much that he was allowed to develop properly. It's that it was
encumbered by the pipeline.
The pipeline out of Baja California in Mexico is not quite the same as it would be for Ayuso.
But it might have worked out for him.
Yeah.
The latest marginal gain is not being on a well-developed pipeline, but being really good.
Don't race your first Vuelta at like 19 or whatever it was. Yeah,
and podium it.
That's a good idea. Yeah. I feel like unless Ayuso wins this Giro,
he's leaving.
He has to leave, and that's really tricky because he has got a contract in 2028.
Take a pay cut. Yeah.
He'll have to take a pay cut. He has a contract in 2028. Now, UAE would have to agree to let him go. I think if he really agitated for that, they could do that, right? They would do that. And it's not like they don't. Plus, if he doesn't win this Giro, then I think UAE can be relatively sure that he's not their long-term play. And so then they can let him go, right? Like they bought him as an investment as they're picking up all of these young riders. I mean, all of these, there's a whole crop of them that all have contracts to 2028 that are all like under 22 right now. And we don't really know which ones are going to be good yet. They'll just move on to another one. That's the model when you have
and that would be
funds.
Better for cycling too. It would be better for cycling other than because sometimes it's easy to look at UAE and think they're just closing it down for Pogačar to win everything.
Just imagine a Quintana Ayuso.
That would be chaos. You mean Enric Mas
as well?
And
Trident. It would be a Trident.
Trident bring back the Movistar Trident. I want it. I want it back.
Ayuso needs to be smart here because the Giro is going to be open enough and we've seen enough attack and intent from the other GC contenders that he just needs to wait for them to attack Del Toro, see if they can drop him, and then he just follows the wheels. That's the way that you win the Giro and also don't
without pissing anyone off.
Piss everyone off by attacking the teammate. The blueprint is there.
And if Del Toro cracks, Ayuso does not have to wait. No one will expect him to wait. And there will be no hard feelings if that is the case. So that is the ideal scenario for Ayuso as we go into the next 10 days. Can we talk Roglic real quick?
What's he doing? Because he's all over the place. He is
he's just all over the place.
He is a mess.
Well,
it's a shame because he's done a dry. Well, he's done a Tuscan time trial that ended in the wet before, and he won it because he started off he was number 143 in the GC, so he started early like our friend Larry. But this time he didn't escape the rain, so he fell down in the time trial recon. So it must have been raining beforehand. Everyone got a little bit of weather.
But then he started because he was like 9th or 10th overall, and he started because the rain kept on getting worse. So he maybe even had a slight advantage of it being slightly drier.
Well, but the crash.
But he didn't fall in the. He didn't fall in the TT.
But that will slow you down in the race when you've just fallen down and you're worried about it. It looked slick as hell. Like it looked horrible.
Some of those roads are not designed for bad weather, oddly, because Tuscany gets some really bad weather. But it's because of the way that they're engineered and all kind of wiggly and all over the place. They're not. It's scary to drive around there, let alone ride a bike. Lovely in a good weather, but it's chaos if it's not.
Can we get a heart pick for the Giro GC in Rome? So after everything you've seen,
yeah.
the narratives that are currently floating around, like the Del Toro narrative, the Ayuso needs to defend his honor
Sniper
narrative. We've
Sniper's
got Sniper
pick.
in there. I think all three of us managed to get Sniper references in the last 48 hours into stories that we've written.
Yeah, you got to do it.
So congratulations to us. Like what? We've got Roglic.
Nah, I don't want Roglic.
Last stand.
Yeah,
It's got to be Del Toro.
That's the thing, is he'll win the Vuelta, but this is the last decent race he's going to have a chance to win, surely. I mean, not that the Vuelta. Sorry, Dane. The Vuelta's great. This is maybe he'll come back next year and do the Giro, but this is better.
Yeah.
He's got to try and win. So if he does it, I don't know. Will he be happy with the podium? I don't know. I want to see Roglic going on an absolute.
What about a
Froome-esque flyer in the last week?
Would you mind if I speak a little Simon Philip Yates to you both?
No, I'm all in for Simon Yates. Simon Philip Yates. And his brother who doesn't have a middle name.
They always put it up on the graphic, and it must be his UCI registered name, where it's just Simon Philip in massive font and then Yates underneath.
Because Adam never gets one, right?
No, never. We should ask him about that. I'm sure he'd love that question.
Maybe they're both Adam Philip. I don't know.
That would be great. No, the hot pick's got to be Isaac Del Toro. This is the story.
Right.
One of the best stories in cycling is when
it would be very good.
The teammate who's not expected to win actually finds himself in a position to win and then wins it on merit. Not like Sepp Kuss when he was just given it, but like a proper Geraint Thomas 2018 that thing. We saw what happened.
Yeah, but a redemption for Simon Yates would be good though. After that absolute.
And Visma needs something. Visma need a win.
Yeah, especially
like a proper one.
As they're not going to win the Tour de France this year with that final stage.
Yes. Oh, that segue's come too quick, Kit. We're gonna have to copy and paste that in for later in the show.
Should we head to it? We can head to it.
Okay. Yeah.
Are we not done with the Giro? I don't know.
Yeah, we're gonna let's cap that bit of Giro. We're going to talk a little bit like micro preview of the weekend, I think, later in the show. But let's take a quick break. All right, so let's move on here. We've got sort of a pile of things to talk about. And Kit, do you want to do your segue again?
Yes.
What was your Montmartre segue?
Well, so I said they need to win the Giro because they're not going to win the Tour this year. Although, so the point, the segue is, the Tour is finishing on the Champs-élysées on the 50th anniversary of the Champs-élysées, but 6 kilometers before they get there, they'll be going over the third ascent of the Montmartre climb.
Yep.
Basically, Christian Prudhomme wants to give the yellow jersey an opportunity, or a yellow jersey type rider, or a classicist, or whatever, to classicist. Anyway,
I like that. I like that. That's much better than classic specialist, classicist.
To cross the line first.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a stage that perfectly suits someone like, obviously, Remco Evenepoel, who won the Olympic Games. And Tadej Pogačar, who obviously likes to race a one-day type event. Jonas Vingegaard, we have no real idea how he would do on that circuit. I mean, he'd probably be okay.
Refuses to do fun things like that.
But it's not. It won't suit him. Although you say he refuses to do fun things like that, he has said he will, if he gets picked, he'll go to the World Championships this year. If he doesn't fall over before then, he wants to go to the World Championships.
Yeah, great.
But yeah, so that's why that was where the segue was coming from. I mean, it means that Jumbo, that's a long time ago, Visma Lease Bike will have to race the Tour de France properly and get it done if they want to get it done before that final stage. But what do we think, guys? It's a break of tradition, eh?
Well,
Can you imagine that time moves on and things change? Just absolutely
right. Yeah.
I wrote a whole story about this yesterday, and I was pretty careful not to put my opinion in it too much.
Yeah, you did a good job of that.
I kind of just presented both sides, right?
I both sides. From sitting on the fence.
I New York Times that story. I presented both sides. But there's a great quote. There's a great quote about our job is not to.
The New York Times is basically just putting horrific things inside of a newspaper and just like throwing their hands up with like an artsy photo, being like, "Oh well, another day of hell on earth."
Or you ask the person perpetrating the horrific thing, whether it's bad, and then you ask the person who it's happening to whether it's bad, and then you go, well, who could say? Who could say? Because
so
the
true.
person saying it's bad it says it's not bad. So anyway, that's basically what I did with the story yesterday. And granted, at much lower stakes, significantly
I don't know about
lower stakes. So yeah, like the riders pretty much unanimously don't like this, right? I am not super surprised by this because, lo and behold, bike riders don't want hard bike races.
No,
They don't. They will already have had 3 weeks of hard bike racing. They like the fact that they get to just hang out and drink some champagne. And there is an argument that I don't totally disagree with, that particularly for those in the race and at the race, it is a day of release, right? Like you have this tension built over 3 weeks and the stress is palpable and you can feel it releasing at the end of that day, right? Partly because, like, other than the 10 people who care and can potentially win the stage, everybody else is just riding around behind them, right? And so you can actually, like, they're lapping the champs and they're looking over at their family, they're waving. Like, it's not an easy day, but it's not a normal tour stage. I think that there is some value in that, some small amount of value in that.
There's the value. What's the value?
The value is, we care about their feelings.
Well, I think to add to that. Well, I was going to help. I was going to add what comes to mind when you say that is that, because one argument might be to say, well, why can't they just do that on Monday? But there's something quite nice.
Yeah.
But there's something
or
quite
like 6 hours later at the duplex.
Yeah, exactly. But there's something quite nice about actually seeing them decompress, because you never see cyclists decompress, but actually to see them kind of just ride the bikes.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I think they're going to decompress. I think they're going to decompress anyway. Like it's still finishing on the champs. Realistically, if you don't have any sort of GC ambition or stage ambition, you're just not going to go up the Montmartre climb that hard, and we're going to have riders trickling across the line for 10 minutes. Right?
That'd be great though. That'd be much more fun, because at the moment it's one homogenous blob that you only see every 7 minutes.
So that's one side of this, New York Times story, right? The other side is literally everybody else who is bored out of their minds watching the Champs-Élysées stage.
Yeah.
Because you watch a little bit of them having some champagne, and that's nice, and they take a photo, and then you turn it on for the last 10 minutes, and that part's kind of fun. They're ripping around the Champs, right? And then the sprint is fantastic. It is genuinely a fantastic sprint, as sprints go. But this isn't just coming from me. Like, I poll our members on Discord. The comments on the story that I wrote are pretty much backing this up. Most people are not particularly moved by that stage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if you are Christian Prudhomme, you are taking that into account, and you're saying we have to probably update this. And this is not like the way to finish the biggest bike race in the world is not like a nice moment of release for the people that are actually in Paris, because there are millions of people who are not there.
Mm-hmm.
And really we should be thinking of them, right? So for me personally, generally
you just want to go to the
duplex.
G-Plex. That's all you care about by the time you get to Paris.
I just like I've enjoyed the last stage in many ways, but I don't watch it. Like, we're running around, we're trying to get from our hotel to the finish line, we're trying to fight with security people to get to where we need to go in the shots. Like, I'm not watching the race.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter to me. We don't matter, is what I'm saying. We don't matter. The riders don't really matter. The people watching on the ground, it's going to be better for them anyway, because the Montmartre climb is cool. My point being, while I was relatively neutral in the story that I wrote yesterday, I am wholly in favor of this. I think it's a significant improvement.
Agreed. I think it's dumb to finish and films, other sporting events, whatever. You want it to go down to the last second of play or whatever, and that's what could happen. If you've got them separated by a couple of seconds or something like that, then you would have the final stage in play, and it'd be amazing. And you can't stand still. What about eventually you try this out? Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. But then you could even cycle between. So one year you do a flat one year you do the hilly one. there's no point not trying just because Wout van Aert, who's going to be retired within 6 years, says, no, I don't want to do it anymore.
Well, Wout van Aert might be speaking through his team.
Yes.
Speaking for his team.
Yeah, well, they don't like anything, do they, Viz Release a bike?
Well, they also will be looking after Jonas Vingegaard, who won't like that stage. Wout van Aert would love that stage. If Vingegaard falls over and is sixth overall by that point, or not in the race, then Van Aert will go and try and win the stage.
Shall I tell you what Christian Prudhomme said, the tour director?
They're good quotes, yeah.
He basically, I don't have the direct quotes, but he basically said that, we put in the gravel, the riders don't like it. We brought the cobbles back, riders don't like it. He said even when Henri de Grange put in the Pyrenees and the Tourmalet in the early 20th century, the riders didn't like it. And now we can't imagine not going to the Pyrenees in the Tour. Mm-hmm. In other words, Christian Prudhomme is doing a very, very brave thing as a Frenchman and embracing modernity. Which,
well said. Yeah.
Which is great because he realizes what moves the needle in 21st century sport, and it is spectacle. And as we saw in the Olympics, this works. There's literally no reason not to try it out at the Tour.
Should we talk a little bit about what it actually is?
Sorry,
just briefly.
Oh, what do you mean, the actual circuit?
Yeah, the actual circuit. So just to put a picture in people's heads, so they know kind of who it's for potentially. So roughly, it is for a classic style rider, because they're going to come in. They're going to do actually I think it's 4 laps of the Champs-élysées first. They do boop, 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 like this. Normal, Place de la Concorde, go around the Arc de Triomphe, etc. And then they turn right at Place de la Concorde and they head up toward Montmartre via 2 relatively large boulevards. So not super technical, plenty, actually a pretty good place, particularly in the way back. There's only one corner really. And so there's a pretty decent area in which to chase if you were doing some chasing. Mm-hmm. When they are heading all the way out, it starts to get complicated at this spot called Place Blanche. And that's when they start to squiggle around. They go up the Rue Lepic, which is the same one that they went up at the Olympics. And then they loop around. And at the Olympics, they went down into the east. And in this case, they're going to loop all the way around Butte Montmartre. What is this sprint zone? There's a sprint zone on the map. Anyway, they're going to do that lap 3 times. And they go around Montmartre, and then they go all the way back, and they go all the way back around the Champs again, and then come back to Montmartre. They do it 3 times. And then, as you said at the start, Kit, we've got 6K from the top, from Sacré-Cœur, and the last lap, back to the finish line.
And it's the finish line that's relatively early on the Champs, like it has been the most recent time because they moved it. They brought it forward, didn't they?
They brought it forward a little
years
bit,
ago,
a couple blocks, basically. Yeah. Which is significant. So anyway, my point being with sort of talking about that is, one, there are some major differences between what this is and what the Olympics was. The Olympics was 270 something kilometers, and the largest teams were 4 or 5 riders. Belgium had 4. Yeah. Totally different race. Right, this is going to be 132 kilometers, and there's going to be teams still that have 7 or 8 riders. I think it's actually there's a decent chance that we see a sprint anyway. Genuinely, what's going to be harder than the climb is going to be the narrowness of the climb, and the fact that positioning into it is going to be very, very important. But even if something escapes over the top, you've got 6 very fast, largely straight kilometers from the top of that. 6K is not a small amount to chase something back, because realistically the largest gap anyone's going to have over the top of that thing is going to be 7 seconds, right? I think there's a decent chance, not that we have 150 rider peloton come in, but that we have a 40 or 50 rider peloton come in. And if I was Jasper Philipsen, or one of the sprinters that can kind of get over stuff like that, Mess Peterson, he's not going to be at the Tour.
No, he's not. Jonathan Milan can climb.
Milan.
And they also, the stage 20 is not the hardest stage of the race, like it often is. The Queen stage will be 18 or 19. 18, they go over Col de la Loze. 19 is the last mountain stage. And then they've got it's a hilly stage, but it's not a hard one. Yeah. I mean, it'll be hard after 19 days in the legs, but
I mean, they'll be tired.
Yeah, obviously, tired, right? But they won't have had to be groveling to the time cut.
But my point really is that, okay, so you've got, let's in our dream scenario, we've got Tadej Pogačar attacking over the top of the Montmartre the last lap. He gets himself 10 seconds. Now, in the Olympics, there was no one really left to chase.
Yeah.
When Remco did that, it was already blown up, right? It was mano a mano. It was very, very small groups. In the Tour de France scenario, you probably still have a decent-sized group behind. You probably still have a bunch of domestiques and lead-out men ready to
there
pull
will
that
still
back
be
if they
the
can.
procession into town as well, won't there?
It feels, and I said this in the story yesterday, it feels very Milan-San Remo to me, which is very much like a compliment, right? Like it could go either way at that point. You've got someone who's it's very likely that there's going to be somebody or a small group that has a small gap over the top of that climb, and then it's also very likely that they end up getting pulled back. And that is a fun bit of tension into the very, very final moments of the
And trying to catch someone on the champs-élysées is much more interesting than watching it.
For sure.
Watching the kind of random breakaway of Luke Durbridge and I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm in favor.
I just love how Luke Durbridge always attacks at the last stage of a Grand Tour, and it's worked once for him, I think. But yeah, it's yeah.
You two are in favor. Prudhomme's in favor.
I'm pretty much in favor. Yeah, I just really hope it doesn't rain overnight, because then all the GC riders' teams will be knocking on doors and saying, "Neutralize this damn stage," and it'll be neutralized at the bottom of at the last exit of Champs-Élysées or something like that.
Yeah, there was. Honestly, I don't think
the GC times, but yeah.
I don't think the GC fight is the interesting thing about this stage anyway.
No.
Like, I think realistically there's going to be very little that happens there. And to be honest, if it shuts them up about how dangerous it is, because it's really just another stage, sure, neutralize it at 60K out. Like, I don't really, fine. The chances of it being 6 seconds between the two leaders is almost nil. So
yeah.
We need to time travel 5 years back in time to pick up Julian Alaphilippe and then bring him for this stage, because in lieu of having a French Tour de France winner, this would be a way to get everyone going.
What is perhaps more likely is that, because do you remember? I don't think it was the Tour. I think it might have been the World Tour a couple of years ago when Enric Mas was a few seconds off the podium.
Yep.
And he tried desperately to get onto it was last year's Giro, because Toms was in the breakaway on the last stage, and there were GC teams trying to catch the breakaway to get bonus seconds. So the more realistic thing perhaps is that we've got David Gaudu in fourth place by 8 seconds, and he wants to go and he tries to do some sort of random Hail Mary sort of move, and it's lower GC riders who try and make something happen on the day.
You know what it really is? It's an opportunity for Astana.
There we go.
Yes.
They're going to be moving up all over the place.
Wait, do you know what it really is?
They'll be done by then. They'll be in the World Tour. They'll be safe.
Do you know what it really is? I've got another one. Do you know what it really is? It is, considering we barely have any sprint stages after like the first 10 days, if any, like proper ones, are we seeing the death of the sprint stage in the Grand Tour? Is this will we look back in decades to come being like, that was the point where we realised that they're just not very fun? Like today, the Giro stage on Thursday. Is anyone having fun? Are riders having fun? Is the audience having fun?
Might be.
Yeah, maybe, but like the vast majority of people are not having fun with today's Giro stage. Something has to change.
Here's how you fix sprint stages.
Give it to me.
You make them.
Put in a car park in Arizona.
I mean, not that far off. You make them American style.
God's sake, we don't want your crits. Not even the Americans want your crits. No one wants the crits.
you take but the reason why they don't work
is because you have the riders.
Because we don't have the riders.
True.
Right. So if you replace those sprint stages with like city circuit stages, take the GC out of the picture. I don't care, and just loop them around, Lyon for an hour and a half, and like that is such a better day, right?
Yeah,
and the thing is, it still suits the same type of rider. The reason I say that is because, like, if you look at the sort of like classic American, whoever the successful American crit racer, if we're going to take that sort of model, they're basically they're sprinters just minus a hell of a lot of power at thresholds. They can't do the European racing thing. They're not strong enough over long periods of time. But like, they're the same physiology if you look at sort of the strengths and weaknesses relative to like a World Tour sprinter. So yeah, just do that.
Yeah, agreed.
It'd be way better. And then we could do them in the evening, and we could sit on the side of the course, and we could drink a beer maybe have a glass of wine, and we could watch the race
Why
happen,
not?
and it would be fantastic. And we wouldn't be watching just feel like a pack of riders ride along a straight road for 4 hours.
I don't think this is an argument for because the race has got to be interesting all the way through. But I wonder if we ask somebody with an office job if they'd be grateful for these slow, boring stages because they actually get some work done.
True.
No one wants to get work done.
No, that's literally
We want the opposite.
I remember having to... Anyway.
We've solved cycling once again. We've solved cycling.
Any... No more sprints. Just crits.
I think we're going to have to take another quick break. When we come back, Johan Museeuw got disqualified from a gravel race, which is very funny. Welcome back, everybody. Johan Museeuw, friend of the pod. Let's be honest. Friend of the pod.
So this got edited out of the newsletter. I'm just going to say it now. In the original newsletter story, I said he was a paid friend of Escape Collective because that's technically what he is. But Kit thought it might come across.
Well, it was put in brackets, and I just thought it's not obvious whether that says he's been paid to be a friend or if he's actually a nice guy. Not that he's not a nice guy, but he's like a member off his own back.
Should we provide? So some context here, which is that we rode with Johan Museeuw in the Escape Collective Classics Member Summit.
And obviously
Johan
he's not doing that.
He doesn't just come ride with random people like us for free.
He's not a fairy of the forest who just appears magically.
I don't know what we pay him because we work with a great bike company called Bike Style. Bike Style has a great relationship with him. It's all kind of built into like the contract we have with Bike Style to put this thing together, the whole package. So I don't know. Like, I have no idea how much we pay him.
I think being a paid friend though is pretty fun. Like, it's quite a compliment.
I'm pretty sure he didn't show up just for fun.
He might have.
Yeah, you never know.
It's not disingenuous. Like I said to Jonny, it's not disingenuous to say friend of Escape.
He is just a friend. He would say hello.
Well, and he was super nice. Like he was great. I was chatting with him for a while.
I mean, I didn't meet him, but
were chatting with him for a little while.
Seemed like he didn't look like he was there in handcuffs.
Anyway.
Do you want to know who Johan Museeuw is not friends with?
Yes. Well, there we go. Speaking of handcuffs, I think that we both tried.
We're all going for
the battle of the segways.
So what did he do? What did he do? He got disqualified from a gravel race. How do you even manage that?
He got disqualified from Marley Grav, which is a gravel race in Valkenburg in the Netherlands earlier this month. He had finished 17th in his age groups. He's 59, so I imagine that's 50 to 59. So right at the top of the age group, I would presume. So pretty good. But he was disqualified because he cut off part of the course. And what that means is that and then Johan Museeuw obviously had to explain himself to Het Nieuwsblad, rolling back the years.
The only rider to come outside the top one in his age group to be interested, to bring interest from media. Yeah.
Just like, no matter, as soon as you do one thing that the Belgian media is interested in, like on a bike, they are just there every day of your life waiting for you to even slightly fuck up, and then they'll just be at your door.
Het Nieuwsblad asked about this. This is
it's amazing.
Absolutely great.
Probably has a Het Nieuwsblad phone just in case. Oh, okay, I've done something.
Yeah, big red phone in every retired pro's living room. And we're presuming that that's the way it happened, or that Johan Museeuw was like, you know what, I'm finally going to call up Het Nieuwsblad and give him a story. So Johan Museeuw's point was that there were too many riders in the gravel race, which, you know, in some of these Grand Fondo type things, there are a bunch of riders. Like, that's what happens. So what happened was that he was basically in this traffic jam and basically stood still for like half an hour, not being able to move. So what it sounds like he did was just they were going through this forest, and he just like took a different path through the forest just so he could overtake everyone. Yeah. And you know what? If you are in this this big gravel race in an age group racing, and Johan Museeuw is trying to get past you, I would have no problem with him being like, you know, you just go. You go have fun.
Finishing 18th is getting pissed at being...
I think I've seen video of this moment. Not of Museeuw.
Someone else.
But like someone else posted a video of this like they stuck thousands of people and then it hadn't split up yet and they like stuck them into single track. And so they're literally standing next to it's the middle of the race, standing next to their bike, waiting in line, shuffling forward.
Like they're skiing, like they're getting a ski lift.
Exactly. Like they're getting on the ski lift and then they're like released into the single track and like basically everyone in the line is like, this is. How did they think this was a good idea?
Yeah.
how did we get here?
That's
If I
amazing.
was Johan Museeuw, I think I probably would.
So the final. Go on.
If you won Roubaix, you don't have to wait in line at a gravel fondo thing.
Yeah, especially as he said in the quotes, he didn't really care where he finished. He was just riding his bike, and he wanted to ride his bike.
Yeah,
The
100%.
and I imagine he's
standing
not
queue.
accustomed to standing in line ever in his life
Right.
now. Like, when was the last time he stood in a line?
Or bought a
Don't know.
beer.
Yeah.
He probably
The
doesn't even know
final
how much beer costs.
the final line of his quotes was, "I tried to run through the forest without stopping, and that was apparently wrong. If that is cheating for them, okay." Which is it's just so great. I'm happy that sometimes working in the like cycling news, whatever, you're waiting for the day when the cycling news just stops and there's like nothing that fun or interest, especially with the newsletter. I'm always like, maybe there's gonna be nothing. And then there's always something that pops up. And in the random sort of cycling story generator this week, it was Johan Museeuw getting disqualified from a gravel race, which is great. It gives me life.
It's the equivalent of
Very
that
good.
day in 1930. I think it was some day in September when nothing happened on the British on the news in the UK. So they just played piano music for 20 minutes.
That's great.
So it'll just be Johan Museeuw kind of talking about gravel.
So we have news of another thing that pro athletes and pro cyclists can't do. So obviously they can't enjoy, if you're in Kit's neck of the woods, a deep fried Mars bar.
Nope.
If you can't go into a pub on a Thursday evening with your colleagues and have 4 pints and then have big regrets on Friday morning. You just can't do that. If you're a pro cyclist trying to make it to the top, you can't do that. The other thing you can't do anymore is have a one night stand.
Oh no.
Oh no. So this is news that at a sports conference in London attended by lawyers and doping experts, this is all from a Wheeler Flits article, don't know, they got the inside track on this somehow, is that everyone at the sports conference was warned that one night stands can lead to a positive doping test. And if you're an athlete, it's a professional athlete looking for a second opinion on this, the chairman of the doping authority, Vincent Egbers, which is a great name, has also confirmed that this could potentially lead to some sort of contamination or positive test.
It makes a real assumption about the people
what?
that. Yeah, I mean I like.
Good point.
I like Thomas Decker's quotes. Somebody went after Thomas Decker and asked him what he thought about it, didn't they?
Yes. So I don't. The
Notorious party boy Thomas Decker.
So Egbers's point, the doping guy, he was saying that like with if you eat contaminated meat, supposedly that contains banned hormones, that can lead to a positive test. And like say if you have contact with someone who's been doing cocaine, then that could also leave traces and stuff like that. Or there's I'm actually going to not say what I was about to say. Let's move on to Thomas Decker's quotes, where Wheeler Flits were made clear that he was caught using EPO in 2009. But to be clear, that positive test was not the result of a one night stand. But then immediately after that, Thomas Decker wants to make it clear that it could have happened to him, which I love. So he's literally quoted it could have happened to me for sure. Like, in the first few years of my career, but and later, no, he said in the first few years of my career, no, but then later I have found myself in situations where you wake up in different places, which is, this is just the most like Dutch publication interviews Dutch person where they just say exactly what they're thinking without thought anyone's going to read it. But he puts doubts on it. He's like, we heard Frank Vandenbroek once said that medication was for his dog and had somehow contaminated him. And then you hear that it's someone's partner, and he doubts whether it's true. Because often people, these days you can kind of legally ease your way out of a lot of positive tests. But it's sad for the professional athletes, but probably relevant, I think. I think the professional athletes get around more than you would think.
But it also, I mean, it feels to me almost like just before anyone tries to use this excuse, we're just going to put it away, okay? This is to say, it's like you can't.
Well,
we've thought about this, and it's not gonna pass muster. It's so ludicrous. It's like Come on, guys. Yeah, Thomas Dekker's brilliant. I think he's living his best life as Thomas Dekker.
For anybody who doesn't know who Thomas Dekker is, if you're watching on YouTube, I just pulled up his Instagram. Just
I have huge respect for Thomas Dekker, who I think around Christmas time he got involved in a drag show.
Ah.
Did you see those
Super
pictures?
cool.
I don't know if they're on his Insta, but this guy
he's living his best life.
Living his best life. And
Is he like a Euro Taylor Finney kind of thing?
He's 100% a Euro Taylor Finney.
Isn't he the guy? Didn't he and Thomas? Was it him with Thomas again who got arrested in the US for getting naked by their camper?
Was it him?
Bike race.
Yeah. Oh, great!
That sounds about right. Yeah.
I think it was him.
Anyway,
and they were like, "It's fine in Europe."
Look, he's getting
a facial.
There we go.
Right. So yeah, that's just a fun story. So watch out. To be clear, if you're not in a world where you get doping tests all the time, go live your best life. Do what you want.
Live your best life.
Yeah.
Just be safe.
Be safe. Strict liability only applies to anti-doping. So
yeah. No more fun for they can't have any. How do you have fun if you're a professional cyclist? Do you just not have fun?
Nah, no fun.
No.
Maybe like a little bit of fun in the off season.
Tiniest bit.
Yeah.
Ask Geraint Thomas.
Well, according to Jonathan Vaughters, Richard Carapaz has loads of fun, and
Apparently
we have seen him have a little bit of fun.
Chris Marshall-Bell is about to write a story about how he's not very much fun at all.
Who?
Geraint Thomas?
No,
I've heard
Carapaz.
Oh, Richard Carapaz.
Okay. I was going to say I've heard stories from people who have told me to not tell anyone anything about Geraint Thomas. It's great fun.
Oh, Geraint Thomas is definitely
great guy.
Big
a lot of fun.
Big fun.
Carapaz
is probably also big fun. No, Chris Marshall-Bell is going to write. Do you remember the story that he wrote about? I think it was Adam Yates a couple years ago for Cycling Weekly, where he was basically like, Adam Yates is the most boring human on the planet. He's going to write a similar story about Richard Carapaz, specifically about like Richard Carapaz's responses to interview questions they are phenomenally bad. They are phenomenally bad. Like he just, it's an art. It's an art form to answer things without answering them that effectively. And obviously Chris speaks Spanish, so he's speaking to his native tongue. And, they're still horrible. Because that was my question. Is like, okay, whenever I've tried to talk to him in English, it's obviously poor.
Yeah.
But you're talking to him in Spanish, and he's like, no, it's just as bad. And he's going to write that story for us. All right.
Before we finish with the free section, can I give a quick? I have used the internet to fact check myself about the no news, the date with no news, and I know that somebody on Discord will come and knock on my door. So I'm just going to say that it was Friday, April the 18th, 1930, not September or anything.
Okay.
And the exact quote they said was, "Good evening. Today is Good Friday. There is no news." Cut to piano music.
Oh, because it's bank holidays. So basically, the journalists just didn't want to do any work that day. They're on the pub. There we go.
Yeah,
that's good stuff.
Except that there was news because there was a typhoon in the Philippines, but there was no. I don't know. I don't want to say it.
Christ.
All right, let's wrap it up. I think that's the end of the free show.
Yeah, in the After Dark, we've got... found out... Okay, here's the run sheet for After Dark. The things that I've added on are the rider's wife, who I've been blocked by on Twitter that I found out this afternoon. And following on from our discussion of...
We've got a birthday party.
We've got a couple of birthday parties, and after Caley said I would never be able to spend billions of pounds, I've come up with a list of how I would spend billions of pounds.
Oh, fantastic.
I believe in you now. I didn't at the time, but after reflection.
We've also got an Ineos update, no?
You know what's the best way to spend billions of pounds?
How's that?
But actually slightly less than billions of pounds?
By buying millions of Escape Collective memberships, Caley?
Yes. I was specifically going to say by buying an Escape Collective membership and then using the member purchase program to save yourself 15 to 30% on a number of excellent brands.
$500 pumps.
$500 pumps.
Just do it. You won't regret it. There's no way. If you've got the money to buy a $500 pump, look, you only live once. Do you not want to know how that feels to own a $500 pump?
No, there's genuinely, just a brief mention, there's genuinely a lot of really incredible brands that are in that member purchase program. Once you're a member, you get discounts at all of them. If you're buying any of that sort of thing, bike shorts, jersey, pumps,
socks,
wheels, socks, any of that stuff, The discount will basically pay for your membership. And at the same time, your membership supports Escape Collective and keeps us making this podcast. So it's a win-win.
Most
The
of
math is mathing.
Math is mathing. Head over to escapecollective.com/join. Plus, then you get the member edition of this podcast, which means that you wouldn't be done right now. You'd keep listening.
Yeah.
And you would get to find out what Jonny is going to spend $17 billion on.
And who I got blocked by. We get all the juicy stuff in After Dark because it's in the trust tree.
We're in the trust tree. Yep. We actually had a lawyer confirm this, that inside the trust tree we cannot be sued for anything that we say.
Really? You shouldn't have told me that.
That's not true.
Okay.
It's so obviously not true.
Very
Johnny.
not true. All right.
Very
We're ending
true.
After Dark.
I'm not a
Thank you
lawyer.
so much. We will be back on Monday with the next episode of Spin Cycle. If you're a member and you're on the member feed, hang out. We're headed to After Dark.